Hello, America. I'm Rapacki, and this is Arizona Today. Normally, I have a guest, as you all well know, but I wanted to take a few minutes today just to be with you and to share a couple of thoughts. Kind of informal, because I think the next couple of guests that are going to be on, you need to be prepared. One of them was just on a week ago, and if you go to arizonatoday.org, you'll see the show. It's a national security show with former Deputy Chief of Police, Shawn Taylor. During that show, Shawn and I talked about the intelligence and the actual verified evidence that he has been collecting over 15 years, dealing with money laundering, racketeering, child trafficking, and other issues. Now, these funds that the bad guys have been collecting have worked their way into the political sphere. You go back and look at the show, and you will see and you will hear him discuss the specifics of where some of these funds went and to some of the political people who received them. This has not been something that was done lightly by him. He studied this for a number of years. What started was on a traffic stop where there were drugs in the vehicle. And from that, it began to unfold. And he began to see and validate drug trafficking, child trafficking, other forms of human trafficking and bondage, and ultimately payoffs going to at least 26 states. And you'll see that on the show that when I was last briefed, it was about 26. Now it's a little bit more. It was my privilege to be a part of the briefings beginning 3.5 years ago. And the reason I was brought in was because Senator Mark Finchem, an Arizona State Senator, who is also the founder and president of Election Fairness Institute, realized that monies were being exchanged for votes. Monies were being put into the electoral system to alter the electoral system. We saw that in 2020 with President Trump. It was Mark Finchem who then went ahead and put together a joint legislative hearing to explore with Mayor Giuliani the fraud of the 2020 election. It was my privilege to coordinate that. Several months later, we did it again because there was that much more evidence that came forward. So in 2020, November 30th of 2020, and then 6 months later, we did it again where we had additional evidence that was produced and submitted to the Arizona Attorney General. All of it was covered up. All of it was expunged in one form or another. We couldn't figure that out at first. But slowly but steadily, the evidence came forward that there was collusion, that there was very serious, very sophisticated works by elected officials and others to keep the electoral process hampered and to put their people in. What we didn't know was that in Tennessee, a deputy chief of police, Shawn Taylor, was doing the same thing. He was tracking the monies. He was tracking where those funds went, where they came from, where they went. And he was tracking the drugs that came in from China, the fentanyl, and the open borders. And so he was putting together, step by step, what turned out to be the end result that we were dealing with in Arizona, which was election fraud. Now, the election fraud that we uncovered in Arizona, as you all will remember, led the nation because as Arizona began to expose this, 6 other states came forward. Those 6 states, along with Arizona, altered the presidential election of 2020. Coincidence? Not at all. Very sophisticated, very well thought out, very well financed, and Mr. Taylor was able to bring to us the financial aspects of this, where it showed that gangs, the cartels, and China were all involved with phenomenal amounts of monies. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, which created its own set of problems because the bad guys had so much money, they had to get rid of it. If you go back and look at my show with Chief Taylor, you'll see I took an example of $840 million sitting on my desk. And I want to thank a couple of you who wrote in and said, Dr. Lyle, thank you for that example. It was cute, but it really hit home. If you had $840 million sitting on your desk, like I implied, you were then taking 10, 20 million and giving it away to judges, politicians, entities that are involved directly with government, but also could put a stamp on things. Hence, we were not able to take the evidence we found through the joint legislative hearings on election fraud and move them forward. Nobody would deal with it. We walked in with absolute evidence, not theory, not opinion, hard evidence. Since that time of November 30th of 2020, additional evidence has come forward. It's been several years, and the amount of evidence has continued to mount. And yet nobody wanted to deal with it. To this day, there are still many, many claiming there was no election fraud. Nothing was rigged. Sort of like the Epstein files, there were none. Sort of like 100 or more people going to Epstein Island, elected officials. No, that's just theory. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's my opinion that what the Lord is doing is he's revealing step by step that which has been covered up for a very long time, very dark, very demonic. It has hurt many people. There's been lives lost. Chief Taylor, as we said in the show, he's had numerous threats on his life. He's had to move a couple of times because his homes were shot up. And I don't mean one bullet going through a glass window. If you look at the national security show that I did, it's rather long because there's so much information we needed to get out. Why did we need to get it out? It is my belief that the information, the evidence that's been collected by Chief Taylor, that the Election Fairness Institute by Senator Fincham has put together, we've come together on this. And we've been able to show that one supports the other. Where there is tremendous amounts of monies, remember what I said, I had $840 million pretending, I don't want an email, $840 million, which you'll find out, you go back and look, Chief Taylor said, yes, that's a drop in the bucket. So I had 840 million and I was taking those and giving them to political people, attorney generals, judges, lawyers, other political entities. Some were named on that show. What will be coming is Chief Taylor will be back on and there will be additional names brought forward, additional evidence. This is not for theatrical purposes. The financial aspects that Chief Taylor's uncovered and the very sophisticated techniques and networks of how those funds are divided and where they're going, along with the Election Fairness Institute showing fraud. Like I said, we've come together and we've been able to show there really is collusion. There really is far more than racketeering taking place. It's money laundering. When you sell a house for $350,000 and $2 million or more is put in your bank account, what would you call that? You go back and look at the first show on this that I did with Chief Taylor, and you'll see example after example that he has, that the evidence has been turned in already to Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and a couple of others unnamed. The White House was briefed on this several months ago. You don't do that, ladies and gentlemen. You don't go to that level and have an hour briefing if it's theory. It just doesn't work that way. At a lower level, maybe so, maybe at an assistant at an assistant level. But when you're at the top levels, you can't walk in there and just espouse theory, opinion. You better have, and Chief Taylor and Senator Fincham did, absolute, irrefutable evidence. There were not only documents, there were diagrams to the sophistication of the networking, where the funds came in, where the drugs came in, how they were dispersed, and then how those funds would sit on someone's desk, like I made the example, okay, and how those funds were then divvied up. Where did they go? I would say Arizona Governor Hobbs has some very serious questions that need to be answered. It is more than alleged that she received some of these funds. But she's not alone. It's happened in other states. And Chief Taylor did suggest and also name some, but there's more coming. This is not for theatrical purposes, ladies and gentlemen. This is really to inform you, because we've all been kept in the dark. You're seeing the same thing happen now where the United States Congress has subpoenaed, and I don't have the total, is it 16 individuals? Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Comey, and a whole number of folks, subpoenaed them on the Russiagate, on the Russia doctrine, on the Russia mess with Trump, where they accused Trump of colluding with Russia to steal the election of 2016. This has all been made up very sophisticatedly with tremendous amounts of monies to switch this nation into something it was never, ever intended to be. America is still really on the edge, ladies and gentlemen. This next election will decide, in my opinion, it will decide whether or not this nation remains free or it collapses into the one world government. I'm not theatrical. Go back and look at all my writings. Go to my Substacks. Go to my website. I don't think I'm theatrical. It's okay if you disagree with me. One of my mentors taught me that it's difference of opinion that makes horse races. I think Mark Twain was pretty wise. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in a fight for our lives for this nation. A lot of things have been covered up, very sophisticatedly too. I don't mean just put under a bed somewhere, very sophisticatedly. And my last show with Chief Taylor, we began to open that door and began to show you that level of sophistication. There's more coming, and I'm glad that we'll be able to put it out here on Arizona Today. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for allowing me to take this time, but also other times to share with you what is very sobering information. And thank you for your support, not only your letters of encouragement and emails, but your dollars to keep the lights on. I'm Rapacki, and that's how I see things from Arizona Today.